You are still breathing, and that is not an accident. If you are watching this right now, past 60 years of living, past the aches and the losses and the quiet mornings, where you wondered if the best was already behind you, I need you to hear something that most people will never say to your face. God is not done with you. He is not wrapping things up. He is not moving on to someone younger, someone with more energy, someone who did not waste so many years. No, He is right here, in this moment, with something specific on His mind. And that something is you. This is not encouragement. This is not a pep talk to make you feel better before the day ends. This is a word, and if you have ears to hear it, everything about how you see the rest of your life is about to shift. Let me tell you something. The enemy does not want you to figure out the reason you are being hit with exhaustion, with loneliness, with that whisper that says you are no longer relevant. It is not random. Suffering is never random when it targets a specific person, with a specific intensity, at a specific season of their life. The enemy does not waste ammunition on people who pose no threat. He attacks what he fears, and he fears what you carry. He fears the wisdom that only comes from decades of being broken and rebuilt. He fears the faith that has been tested by real fire, not the untested faith of someone who has not yet walked through their valley. He fears what you would do, what you would say, who you would become, if you ever stop believing the lie that your best days are behind you. You are not a survivor by accident. You are an assignment that heaven has kept alive on purpose. Now I want to take you somewhere. I want you to stand next to a man named Moses. Moses is 80 years old, not 50, not 65, 80, and he has a complicated past. He killed a man. He ran. He spent 40 years in obscurity, in the desert, tending someone else's sheep. By every human measurement, his window had closed decades ago. And then God spoke from a burning bush, not to a young man full of fire, not to someone whose potential was still ahead of them, to an 80-year-old with a stutter and a staff and a lifetime of what he probably called failures. And God said, Go back. The thing I made you for, the thing that has been waiting, it is time. Moses said, Who am I? Moses said, They will not believe me. Moses said, I cannot speak well. And God said, I am not asking for your credentials. I am asking for your obedience. That staff, in the hand of an 80-year-old man, parted the Red Sea. The ocean moved, because an old man held out a stick and trusted the voice that told him to, What is the staff in your hand right now? What ordinary thing are you holding? Calling it too small, calling it too late, when heaven is waiting for you to lift it up? Then there is Caleb. Caleb is 85 years old. 45 years earlier, he had seen the promised land and believed they could take it. But the people were afraid, and so he waited. 45 years of waiting, while others made excuses, while the journey that should have taken 11 days stretched into 4 decades. And when the land was finally being distributed, when everyone else was asking for the easy valleys, the settled places, the comfortable portions, Caleb pointed to a mountain, not a gentle hill, a mountain filled with giants, fortified cities, the hardest territory in the region. And he said, Give me this mountain. He said, The Lord is with me, and I will drive them out, just as he promised. The strength I had when I was 40, I have it now, 85 years old, asking for the hardest fight. Not because he did not know, what hard felt like, but because 45 years of trusting God had given him something that youth cannot manufacture. He was not reckless. He was settled. There is a difference. Recklessness says, I can do this on my own. Settledness says, I have watched God do this before, and I know he will do it again. That is what you carry. That settledness, that knowing. And the world is starving for people who have it. Here is something I need you to understand about right now, about this generation, about this specific moment in history. The young people around you are not lacking information. They have more information than any generation that has ever lived. They can access anything, learn anything, find anything within seconds. But information is not the same as formation. Knowledge is not the same as wisdom, and a generation that has everything at their fingertips can still be completely lost without someone who has walked the road before them. They need you, not the polished version, not the version that has it all figured out. They need the real you, the one who failed and got back up, the one who doubted and kept believing anyway, the one who has scars and can point to every single one and say, God was there, God was faithful, God brought me through that. Think about Samuel. Samuel was a young boy in the temple who heard a voice in the night and did not know what it was. He kept running to Eli, thinking it was the old priest calling for him, and it was Eli, an old man with his own complicated history, who said to him, next time you hear it, say, speak, Lord, your servant is listening. Samuel could not recognize the voice of God without someone older showing him how. Who is your Samuel right now? Who is in your life, watching you, needing you to help them recognize what they are hearing? Because there is someone, and they may not even know they need you yet. But you know, something in you knows. And then there is prayer. I want to talk about prayer as a weapon because the church has made it sound gentle for too long. Prayer is not a bedtime ritual. Prayer is not a polite conversation. Prayer is the place where someone who has learned to be desperate before God goes to shake kingdoms. Anna was 84 years old. The scripture says she never left the temple. She fasted. She prayed day and night. For decades, she did not have a platform. She did not have an audience. She was not on any list that the world would care about. But when the baby Jesus was brought into the temple, she was the one who recognized him. She was the one who had been prepared through years of intimate, costly prayer to see what no one else could see. The enemy knows something about your prayer life that maybe you have forgotten. He knows what your prayers have moved in the past. He knows what doors your intercession has opened. And his greatest strategy against you right now, in this season, is not to attack your body. It is to convince you that you are no longer useful enough to pray, that your prayers are too small, that someone younger, someone more connected, someone more relevant should carry this weight. That is a lie, and the fruit of that lie is silence, and silence is the only thing that gives the enemy room to work. When your knees hit the floor, history moves, even if you never see it with your eyes. Even if the breakthrough comes after you are gone, your prayer is not lost. It is stored. It is accumulated. It is being held in bowls before the throne of God, and one day they will be poured out. Do not stop. Do not let him steal this from you. Now I need to speak to the ones who are carrying regret. Some of you are watching this, and there is a heaviness underneath everything else, a sense that you wasted too much time, that you were not who you should have been for too long, that the years you should have given to God were given to other things, to ambition, to fear, to just trying to survive. And now you are standing at what feels like the end, and you are wondering if there is enough left to matter. I want to take you to the book of Joel, and I want you to hear this as if God is speaking it directly to you. Right now, in this room, in this moment, he says, I will restore to you the years that the locusts have eaten. Not I will comfort you about the years. Not I will help you make peace with what was lost. Restore. That word means he gives it back. What was stolen, what was wasted, what was devoured. He has the capacity to compress and redeem and multiply in a way that makes the accounting of heaven look nothing like the accounting of earth. 5 years in the hands of God can outweigh 50 years of wandering, not because you deserved it, not because you earned it, but because that is who he is. That is what he does with people who come to him with nothing left to offer except their willingness. And if you need one more proof of that, think about the man on the cross next to Jesus. His whole life gone, wasted, ending in execution. And in the final moments, in the last chapter of a story that looked like total failure, he turned his head and said, remember me. And Jesus said, today you will be with me in paradise. Today, not someday, not when you have done enough to make up for it. Today, if God can do that in a man's last breath, imagine what he can do with the years you still have. So here is where I want to bring this. Here is what I am asking you to do. The first thing is this. Start guarding your words about yourself. Every time you say, I am too old, every time you say, my time has passed, you are agreeing with the enemy and disagreeing with God. You are speaking a verdict over yourself that heaven has not handed down. Stop it. Replace it. Not with empty positivity, but with what is actually true. I am anointed for this season. I am still in the story. God is not finished with me. Say it until you believe it. Say it until your body catches up with what your spirit already knows. The second thing, write it down. The goodness of God in your life. The moments he came through. The times he carried you when you could not carry yourself. Write them down. Tell them to your children and your grandchildren. Psalm 71 says, even when I am old and gray, do not forsake me, O God, until I declare your power to the next generation. This is your assignment. The stories in you are not meant to retire. They are meant to be passed forward. Someone needs to hear what God did in your darkest moment. Someone needs to know it is possible to survive what you survived. Someone needs your testimony before they make a decision that could destroy them. Be generous with your story. The third thing is simple. Choose 3 people. 3 people younger than you, and begin to pray for them every single day without stopping. Not when you feel like it, not when you remember, as a discipline, as an act of spiritual warfare on their behalf. Stand in the gap for them, the way only someone who has been through the fire can stand. You may never know what your prayers prevented. You may never know what doors opened because you stayed faithful at this. But God knows, and the people you prayed for will carry the fruit of it for the rest of their lives. Paul, at the end of his life, sitting in a prison cell, knowing the end was close, wrote these words, "I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. Not I was perfect. Not I made no mistakes. Not I never doubted, or fell, or struggled to get back up." He said, "I fought." He said, "I finished." He said, "I kept it." That is the call over your life right now. Not to arrive without wounds, not to perform without failure, but to finish the way you were made, to finish with everything you had given to everything that mattered. You still have breath. That means you still have purpose. That means heaven is still expecting something from this chapter. Do not spend it sitting down. Do not spend it in apology for existing. Do not spend it waiting to feel ready. Lift the staff. Ask for the mountain. Kneel in the temple. Write the story. Pray the prayer. You were not kept alive to fade out quietly. You were kept alive to finish in glory.